My name's Krista, and today we have this wonderful session planned, and it is part and parcel of the NHSE Workforce Project that Steph and the Creative Health Alliance have been working on for the past few months. So you're going to see a lot of these webinars coming up from now till the end of February, March, and I implore you all to register for them. For today's session, it is being recorded and it will be made available afterwards. Not immediately like your normal tea time talks, but it will be made available later on. If you have questions, comments, please leave them in the chat. There will be a time allotted to question and answers at the end as well. So in case you want to make a comment, you can just put on your camera, put on your mic and say your point. So with that, I'm just gonna hand over the mic to Steph.
That's lovely. Thanks, Krista. And whilst I'm speaking, if we could just have mics off so there's no feedback. I think we've got a couple at the moment. Could you just check, Krista, if we can? That's lovely. I think we're all good. Well, thank you for having me. It's very lovely to be here. We've got until 7 o'clock, and my promise to you, 7 o'clock UK time, I should say. And my promise to you is that I will deliver you on time and away for the rest of your evening. But I am delighted to be here to talk about unlocking the potential of the support workers and technicians within P&O, and specifically around the patient-facing roles. Now, the slides you've got access to will be available. You can also navigate your own way forward or backwards. So if I skip something and you want to look, you can choose to go backwards without altering the slides on here. You can also, where the three dots are, if you want to expand the slides or view them in a different format, you can also do that. So our session this evening is going to explore the why, the what and the how, and talk within the UK context about the next steps to develop this part of our workforce. I'm going to start off by sharing with you my why before talking about the data in the P&O workforce. And then we're going to explore the backgrounds to this project. This has been a one-year project, but it's built on a project from the previous year. So I'm going to share some of that with you, as well as some of the resources. But here's my why. I'm an occupational therapist by profession. So I'm an allied health profession, but I sit outside the world of P&O. And my career started in 1997 in a very large, very busy acute hospital in the south of England, and I worked in neuro-intensive care, and I couldn't have functioned without the technician in the team and without the support worker in the team. The technician would come and build amazing things to support patients, to maybe use the alarm bells to call the nurses when they weren't able to access them. The support workers, with supervision and delegation, would be set up with programs to help people who were struggling with attention and memory loss to visit them daily and start doing some of that early rehab work as we supported people back into recovery. So from the very, very start of my career, I have worked with very skilled technicians and very capable support workers, and without them I could not have functioned, and our service could not have delivered what it did to meet the patient's needs. And then fast forward 10 years, and I've had the privilege of being the programme lead for the Bachelor of Science part-time course for occupational therapy. And this was before apprenticeships had evolved in England. And this course was for part-time, like I said, a part-time course over 4 years. And all of the people on it were either support workers or technicians who wanted to become qualified registered occupational therapists. And I had the privilege of leading that course for a number of years. And we had about 20 to 25 people per year going through that course and then coming into the workforce as registered professionals. But, you know, they were such a joy to work with, because they had a lot of clinical experience. They had a lot of them had a lot of experience in a very specific area, and they wanted to add the theory and the broader knowledge to their skills skill sets so they could work in many different settings. And I was very fortunate to learn from them as they were to go through the programme. Fast forward to 2017 and I'd moved jobs again, and I'm working at the Royal College of Occupational Therapists, and I lead the work on the career development framework. And what I was so proud of with this work is that it brought together the careers of the support workers and the technicians, as well as the regulated workforce, and one framework to show how you could develop careers throughout that trajectory. So I was delighted when I saw BAPO launch their own career development framework last year, which also does the same. Not every framework includes support workers and technicians and the registered workforce. There are some professions that keep them separate. Occupational therapy didn't, P&O didn't, and we'll talk about it a bit more later because I'll share some of those resources. So when 2024 came knocking, this time last year, and there was an opportunity to lead this work to promote and support the work of the support workers and technicians within the P&O profession, it was an absolute privilege to be able to lead this work. So that's my why, which brings us on to the P&O workforce why. Workforce data, and there's a link here to the report. In the UK, and a huge piece of robust research was led by Nikki Edison and the team, at highlighting, profiling what the UK workforce looks like. And if you haven't read it, it's absolutely worth a look. It looks at a detailed breakdown of the registered professionals as well as the technician and support workers. Some of the headlines from this show that there are 877 people working as P&O technicians or support workers in the UK. But you'll see the breakdown. The breakdown is there's 819 technicians and only 58 support workers. However, that doesn't mean we look at just the support workers and think, oh, we've got enough technicians, because that's not the case. To meet the required standards from the World Health Organization, we need, on top of that 877, anywhere between 1,133 to 1,803 extra technicians and support workers to meet those standards. So please don't look at that data and think, oh, we don't need to worry about the technicians, we just need to focus on support workers. That's not the case. We need to develop both elements of this essential part of our workforce. There's more. There's another workforce why. If we can develop more patient-facing roles, we can make better and more effective use of, and also grow, the technician and support workforce as part of a strategic response to the workforce shortage. When I reflect back on my own experiences as an occupational therapist, I wouldn't have been able to do a fraction of my patient-facing work on neurointensive care if it hadn't have been for the technician working with me on the ward, if it hadn't have been for the support worker working with me on the ward. So we know there is a workforce shortage. So how can we grow this element into more patient-facing roles so with appropriate supervision and with appropriate delegation, some of the workforce this workforce can take on some of the more general and standardized pieces of work. We also need to invest in the technician and support workforce. This is a group who may offer a significant and affordable route for future workforce development expansion. And like I said, from my own profession, we had 20 to 25 support workers and technicians per year, and that was just within London, going through a part-time programme to become registered professionals. However, there's an extra but on this one. We need to invest in the group because potentially some of them will become registered professionals. And the data from the workforce survey certainly supported that, with 43% who responded to that research expressing an interest in becoming a registered professional. But at the same time, we need to develop the technician and support workforce to value the roles as career destinations within the profession in their own right. It's not about just growing this workforce so we can move them all into becoming registered professionals, because we need a highly skilled technician and support workforce to to stay within this element of the career. So we need opportunities to grow within these roles. We need different levels. We need more learning and development opportunities. It's not all about seeing them as future registered P&Os. And it's finding that balancing act and remembering to value the roles as career destinations within their own right. So that's what some of the data has been telling us. That's the why. Why do we need to, to focus on expanding this part of the workforce, including into patient-facing roles? So like I said, I was project lead for phase 2 of this work. And we were commissioned to develop activities to contribute to the development of the technician and support workers, including openly available guidance and contents about the roles and the scope of practice. I've got some of that to share with you today. And active communications or a specific campaign to promote and support the role within the profession. And that's what we are also doing today. So here's some of the aims and the deliverables from across both phases of the project. The previous commission, so I can take no claim to any of this. I mentioned the career development framework for prosthetists and orthotists, and alongside that, Beverly Durrant also led the work to develop the support worker framework for the workforce. So these came out, they were launched about 11 months ago, so still very new. And all of our experiences tell us that when you've got new resources, it still takes a long time to get the resources into practice. So I'm really hoping that today is one of those examples where we can promote the resources that are out there alongside the resources that are coming. The support worker framework is a fantastic piece of work, and it actually talks about the different roles and the different responsibilities that different segments of the workforce can do, alongside ways to develop them. There's a sample job description in the back. There's guidance on delegation. There's guidance on supervision. And like I said, the career development framework is for technicians, support workers, and registered professionals when thinking about how they want to build and grow their own careers. So those were outputs from the previous phase 1, the previous commission. And then this year we've taken all of that work and we've built on it. And we're delighted to be able to share with you that we've worked hard to build the support worker and technician web pages on the BAPO website, and the link is there. And what we've done with that is we've packed it full of the existing resources, but we've also developed a human library. So that little box that you can't really see that clearly, that lists lots of different people's names. And when you drop down, there's stories about what those people are doing in their role as technicians and assistants, just to provide some inspiration about different ways that this workforce can meet the need of the services. So we've worked very hard to develop content. We've provided a home for existing content and pulled all of that together. And the final outputs are tonight's talk, which will be edited and freely available as an ongoing asset, alongside an influencing report which benchmarks current practice. And that's something I want to discuss with you today and get your thoughts on it as well. We'll come on to that in a bit more detail in a moment. So that's the final deliverable. We've got the talk that we're delivering now, but then we also have written, it's in draft form at the moment, a report. It's a relatively short report. We're trying to keep it to like 6 or 7 pages with lots of visuals, so we can use it as an influencing piece. So we can, have to start greater conversations around how we expand the potential of the P&O technician support workforce into patient-facing roles. So it's due for publication in the spring, and I really hope, and it'll go as an asset on the support worker and technician web pages at BAPO. And I really hope this is downloaded, freely shared, and it starts conversations when exploring the possibilities of what is relevant for different services and different roles. In terms of how we've developed this final report, we started out with a survey to technicians and support workers who were, including those who were already working in patient-facing roles. We had a response rate of 45, which was a really good response rate to work with. And we asked them to share what they were currently doing. And I'm going to share some of that with you in a moment. We then took those findings to a task and finish group, which included, again, people working in these roles, and to make sense of them, to provide a narrative that gets to write around them. And we also held conversations with various P&O staff members, managers, service managers, and academics. So the report has been developed, has been co-created with lots of people from multiple perspectives. And we really hope it is a resource that starts conversations to explore the art of the possible. So I want to share with you some of the findings from the survey and the task and finish group and the discussions. First of all, I want to introduce you to the 4 pillars of practice. This diagram is taken from the Career Development Framework. Now, the 4 pillars of practice are used across the UK. Some of you may be familiar with them already, and they're used across allied health professions and indeed nurses and midwives as well. The idea being they're called pillars in this case, and that sort of separates them, but actually they're all interrelated. They would be better off being called like strands of practice or something like that. But the idea is each member of the workforce seeks to develop themselves, and services consider how they need to be developed across all 4 pillars of practice. So how do we develop and what do we do in relation to clinical and technical practice, education and facilitating learning, leadership and management, evidence research and development? Way back, these 4 pillars started life embedded into advanced practice, but you'll see now that they have been introduced across all career levels, which I think is a significant step forward, because everybody in health and care has a role to play proportionate to the level that they're employed at, in meeting the demands and the needs across all 4 pillars. And when we went out to our survey and our task and finish group and through the discussions, there's evidence of technicians and support workers in P&O already working in patient-facing roles, delivering across all of these 4 pillars of practice. So I'd like to share with you some of those examples. And then I'd also like to ask you if you can think of any others. Have we missed anything? Is there anything that you would like to add? So as I'm going through, if you see some gaps, please, if you could put those in the chat. And also I'll be asking for you to contribute if you would like to by just raising your hand as well. So we're going to take each of these pillars of practice and we're going to share with you what the workforce currently does or could do in each of the pillars. So the first pillar, clinical and technical practice. So what can or what does the workforce already do in patient-facing roles around this? We know we have assistants and technicians who are running their own delegated clinics, including as part of a multidisciplinary team. So there are uni-professional clinics being run, and there are also broader clinics where I know there are physiotherapists, for example, also involved, and you've got the support workforce running their own delegated element within that. For example, undertaking manufacturing alterations within their scope of practice, undertaking telephone reviews. But as part of this safe and effective practice, they know when to refer to registered P&O colleagues for clinical assessment. So this is a group of people who've been developed and know their scope of practice, but equally they know when they need to refer on. But these are people that are seeing patients potentially much quicker and being able to deal with a lot of issues that in the past the registered workforce would have had to have picked up, who don't necessarily need to because they can appropriately delegate and supervise the support workforce to do it. We also know that this is a workforce who are already supporting patients and families, providing information and check-ins, They're providing admin and service support, managing and maintaining the stock, and maintaining a safe environment for everybody to work in. So there are some examples that we've found through our project work of clinical and technical work that this workforce is already doing. We know they're just not doing it necessarily across the entire system. When it comes to education and facilitating learning, we have some of our support workers working as assistant supervisors. I love this idea, and I've been sharing this idea widely outside of the P&O profession in some of the other work I do with other allied health professions. So we've got people working as assistant supervisors for P&O pre-registration learners and also other students, supporting the development and the learning of the future workforce. We've also got some excellent work going on around career promotion, career talks and promotional activities, some very active and brilliant technicians on social media, sharing the reality of what the work looks like to inspire that future generation coming through. And how could we, expand the potential of more people within the workforce to be taking on some of that work? When it comes to leadership and management, we've got people contributing to audits and service evaluation, quality improvement projects. We've got as people assisting and providing transitional support. So preceptorship for newly qualified staff in particular, and providing onboarding and induction support for new staff. And we know that there are many people in the support workforce and the technicians workforce who are line managing and undertaking management responsibilities for the workshop teams. And then when it comes to evidence research and development, how can we expand the role of this workforce to undertake more patient evaluation sessions, to contribute to quality improvement projects, to collect and analyse audit data? Including the use of outcome measures. So because of the way we're presenting today, you can go back to where you can navigate forwards and backwards on the slides if you want to review those a bit more. Because my next question is over to you, really. Are there any other examples that you would like to share and include examples of where the support workforce and the technicians are doing other elements of patient-facing roles that we've not mentioned so far that we could potentially weave into this final report that we're doing? I'm just going to pause for a second and ask if anyone would like to raise their hand and speak. If anyone would just put things, I can see that Ian's already typing, which is brilliant. Thank you, Ian. If there's any other examples of patient-facing activities that we may have missed out. Yeah, the social media bit is fantastic, isn't it, Ian? I've seen a few, and I've learned loads as well coming out from outside of the profession. And I think that's a fantastic way of also promoting this brilliant profession to the generations who are much more familiar and eager to engage and consume social media. So we're taking career promotion to a place where a lot of them already are. As part of this work a while back, we ran a school webinar for people aged 14 plus, and we had nearly 100 people attend, and it was absolutely fantastic and very engaged and very keen to explore the potential of these roles. So if you think there are any other examples that you would like to see included in a report to really promote and shout out about what this part of the workforce does, please add them into the chat. Oh, Marcus, I've just noticed that in Sweden, we're currently recruiting people for the training through social media. So you have an active career. Thank you. Thanks for the link. I'll have a look at that. And that there could be something that we could explore there, a deliberate campaign we engaged in a deliberate campaign alongside a lot of other allied health professions. It was AHP Support Workers Week back in November, and we ran a big social media campaign there, pushing out a lot of the content and the resources that we had, and we had some really good traction with that. So there's but the idea of actually, you know, recruiting people is a fantastic thing. So I will look more into that. Thank you. And really, you know, what we've done so far is share with you what we know the elements of the workforce are doing, and I've shared with you why we want to do that. We know we have a shortage. We've got a shortage of technicians and support workers anyway. We've got a shortage in terms of the demand. We need more to be in the roles themselves, but also potentially to introduce them to the world of P&O if they want to become a registered professional as well. So the up for discussion now really is this idea about, well, how do we unlock the potential of this workforce? What are the next steps, and what can we do to really develop further and promote further the role of the support worker and the technician? So again, you'll have these slides. This is a very busy slide, but there was just some examples that I wanted to share with you. On the BAPO website, for example, there's best practice policies and statements, and you'll find there guidance for supervision, including for assistant practitioners. The support worker framework, which I've already mentioned, also has information about safe delegation and supervision that you offer, as well as some excellent information about education and training, and a framework for job planning. Now, the P&O workforce is fortunate in many ways and ahead of other professions in many ways by having a level 3 apprenticeship. And what do we need to know? I mean, I'm sure Ian could do an entire tea time talk on this topic. What do we need to do to support the development of this programme and encourage people to think about the apprenticeships as a route into becoming a technician? And if when you go onto the BAPO website, you'll also see, like I said, the support worker and technicians web pages. I'm really delighted with these. This is for the first time we've got a dedicated space for support workers and technicians to shine a light on the work that has already been done, as a collection of stories about the work that is available, and the many roles. And I think that's one of the greatest strengths of this part of the workforce. It's not like one size fits all. It's, well, what are the needs? What are the local needs of the service? And how can a support worker or a technician help meet the demands of that local service, and how could they best be used? Ian, I'll bring you in.
I think I was going to add, Stefan, I think that the words that you've got here, unlock potential. I think what we need is to have, and obviously I'm speaking from a technician point of view here, I think it's a realisation of maybe some managers that the potential staff that they have working with them, and the potential roles that these technicians and support workers can take on. I think we're always busy in our department, and I know clinical time is always in demand. I think we're always looking for patient appointments, and I think it's just asking, and I think what we need to do is ask our clinical managers, our department managers, to think. And I think traditionally our service has been very much technicians, support workers do this job, clinicians do this job, and I think we need to then look where we are now. How do we change our service? How can we use the workers that we have, maybe for better roles, or for roles to assist our clinical colleagues and free up some of their valuable clinical time to be doing the more important clinical roles. And I'm not taking away from the technical roles, but just the input that we can give to departments to allow departments to maybe operate and function better.
Yeah, thank you. And I think, you know, now we have the support worker framework that gives a structure to actually map the existing workforce into the framework. identify what they're already doing, identify where there are opportunities, like you say, to adapt the way the workforce grows appropriately, and consider the wraparound delegation and supervision required to enable them to do that. But yeah, from a service improvement perspective, and you're right, Ian, I mean, I think we all experience this across all of our professions. It's the demands on time and headspace to do these initiatives and to change the way our services run, but the payoff can be significant. And I know from my own experience in reviewing other services from other professions where they've changed the way support workers and technicians work, the waiting lists have got less, people are seen quicker, people are seen with with the appropriate person for their level of need, if you use some sort of triage system. So there are different ways of running the services. But I hear you, it's a call, isn't it? It's a challenge to think differently. But now we've got some of the extra resources to support that with the career development framework and the support worker framework. And I'm really hoping the support worker and technicians web pages also shine a light on just some examples of where people are already doing it, so people can look at those examples and maybe find some inspiration and connections with their own workplace. The other thing that is a priority as well, these challenges that we're talking about aren't unique to P&O at all. So I've included here the allied health professions, support worker, competency, education and career development framework. And, you know, the P&O profession sits in the UK anyway within 15 different allied health professions, including speech and language therapists, physios, occupational therapists, so many of us. But each profession has its own challenges with developing its workforce, and each profession is looking at how to maximise and unlock the potential and expand the role of the support worker. So what can we do on scale? What can we do by forging alliances across the professions to show that there is a greater need across all of the professions to develop the support workforce? Because then if we can do that on scale, we can amplify our voice and influence the development of these roles across the professions. So that's really what I wanted to share with you in terms of what other steps do you feel need to be considered, and if any of you have any suggestions around that. So this is where we start to bring the session back to you. And if there's anything, is there anything that we haven't talked about that you're sitting there thinking, oh, but we do this, or we could do this, that you think we should also consider? So the question here is, what other next steps need to be considered? So if you have any suggestions, if you could put those in the chat, if that's more comfortable for you. Thank you, Grish. I see you're typing. Equally, if you're comfortable to come off microphone. Ian, while Grish is typing, I'll bring you in.
I'm not trying to monopolise here, Steph, I promise. But I think it's for technicians and support workers to feel more confident in their roles as well. And I think that's maybe some way that we as an association can maybe support, because I know traditionally, and obviously I've spoken to Krista as well, but where we think technician courses and support worker courses, that maybe it's a little bit thinking about things like communication skills and working with individuals and thinking about these to bring these skills up, because I mean, some people may feel a little bit nervous being in the situation of speaking to a patient or speaking to a carer. And I know obviously our clinical colleagues do that on a day-to-day basis. And maybe that's one of the things that we're maybe missing. So we've got individuals who are highly skilled within the workshop, but we want to take them out of that environment and put them into, shall we call it, a semi-clinical environment or a clinical environment where they'll be actually communicating with patients and carers to find out what's wrong with the patient's device. And obviously we can explain to them how we're going to adapt that or repair that device. So maybe it's even thinking about just communication skills and people skills as well, to think about adding that as a possible training course or training opportunity for this support worker technical role.
I really like this idea, because what we're talking about here is influencing the service managers through encouraging them to think differently, but then also empowering individual technicians and support workers in their roles to think about what elements may be uncomfortable and what preceptorship, what transitional support do they need wrapped around them to take on that extra role and responsibility. So
Yeah,
that's
I
a
know
really
it's
good
one of the
point.
subjects. One of the subjects we cover within the apprenticeship, the level 3 apprenticeship, because I think communication is the major, it's the issue where we fall down. And if we can't communicate with our professional colleagues, with our patients, we can't achieve work. We can't achieve what we do. And I know sometimes my students think communication is something that we do. Well, it's something we do all the time, but it's maybe something they don't think about why they do it and how to do it. So I think certainly it helps to actually highlight that as a training opportunity.
Yeah. So I'm just going to record training opportunities. Gary, thanks for your message. He's listening whilst mobile, so I appreciate that, and would really value hearing your thoughts once you're nearer a format. So yeah, I'm just picking up the comment in the chat just to know, as we are as technicians, are we allowed to take cast on the patient's P&O with the assistance with clinicians here in the UK? Ian, I'm going to bring you in for that one.
I would probably say no. I would say that's not a technical role. I think, I know maybe some countries they maybe do take cast. I think that role is definitely a clinical role. And I'm sure if I was working with Krista, she would be seeing her patients. She would take the cast. She might then communicate to me what she wants manufactured from that cast. But I think the assessment and the cast taking and the measurements is definitely a clinical role. Certainly maybe technicians might assist. I know certainly in some clinics where we're making, for example, CAFOs, that the technicians might be involved with the clinician just to make sure that the clinician's taking all the measurements that we need, because there's nothing worse than receiving a measurement chart and just some of the important ones are missing. So I think it's, we may maybe do that where we'll actually go into the clinic room with the clinician, but to assist them or to make sure that they're getting all the correct sizes that we need. But certainly I think that role that Gish has mentioned there is definitely a clinical role.
I'll bring Krista in. Thanks, Ian.
Thanks, Steph, for that good presentation. Just a detour, more like a question, because I've had conversations with support workers as well. And one of the comments, just one comment that came up and that it got me thinking, is that when a trust or a company employs a support worker and they have a scope of practice which they do on a day-to-day basis, and at some point they want to progress in their roles and they want to do more, and they kind of take up more training to understand how to fit more devices or to assist in different ways, but then their salaries remain the same, so they're essentially doing more work for the same pay. Is there a way around that, or I don't know what people's thoughts are on that?
Yeah, I think, Krista, you've just spoken about the elephant in the room, aren't you? Because I think you can speak to one person and say, we want to enhance your role, and they might immediately say, yes, so are you going to enhance my salary for that as well? And I think it's a bit like chicken and egg, because we will hopefully advance these roles, and hopefully you would be able to remunerate them in such a way. I think obviously budgets come into that, and obviously bandings if it's in the NHS and whatever. But I think it's a bit like I would be saying to that person, yep, we want to see you enhancing your role, and then we would then be able to consider that as a possible increase in your salary. I think we would all like that, but I think it's a bit of a 50-50 from the member of staff as well as from the manager. So yes, to support them in the role, to enhance their role, but yes, I think remuneration is always something that's nice, and it gives you a chance to differentiate them from the other roles that they were doing.
And
Yeah.
to add two points to that, the AHP support worker framework actually delineates 3 different levels of practice within the support workforce to accommodate, room to grow and room to move vertically if that's what people want to do. So the framework and the structure is developing there. The other thing to say is, of course, if you talk to NHS employers or any employer, they would say that your job description provides you with room to grow. It's very rare that somebody is employed and they excel and deliver right at the top of the level of every single item on their job description. So there is always the, not argument, but there's always the point that a job description itself allows room to grow within it, because quite often people are employed not necessarily working at the top of that description to start with. And I know there's also those are 2 points that I hear discussed. But absolutely, at the end of the day, NHS Agenda for Change banding or any other it's a pay scale of what the organisation feels it needs and what it's able to afford at that time. At the same time, that's different from career progression and growth, which can often mean you're taking roles and responsibilities appropriately for your own development, including if you want to move into the registered workforce later on.
Thanks, Steph. Thanks, Ian.
So I think I'm just looking, that's my last slide. So I wanted to share with you why we needed, I'm just going to do a bit of a recap, why we need to focus on expanding the support worker and the technician workforce, including into more patient-facing roles. I explained, why I'm very passionate about this topic, and I've seen the real difference that patient-facing work does and what it offers the service, but most importantly what it offers the patients and all of the people we serve. We know there's a large workforce. Why? And I'm really excited to share with you all of the resources that we've got. What we do know, of course, is you can have all of these resources. Embedding them into practice is the challenge. So I really hope we've been able to showcase what is already there and what's coming in terms of this influencing report, and encourage and ask all of you to engage with these resources, to use them, to share them widely, and also for us to consider what we can do to create alliances across the AHP workforce, all of whom are looking to expand what the workforce currently offers. So thank you ever so much for your time. I've really been grateful for the opportunity. Are there any last questions before I pass you back to Krista?
I was going to say as well, one thing, and one thing you might have missed, Steph, and I think is also, I'm quite lucky that I do have a patient-facing role as part of my job within the hospital when I work, but also job satisfaction can be an amazing thing. And I think actually working with patients and seeing results and actually feeling at the end of the day, you've actually achieved something more than just working in the workshop. And I think for years and years ago, we worked in the workshops and we didn't often see patients, but actually moving into a more patient-facing role actually gives you a greater job satisfaction.
Yeah, thanks, Ian. Matthew, I've seen your comment. I'll bring you in a moment. And Ian, I think that is, we've mentioned it in the Human Library. There's this fantastic clip of a technician who talks about learning that the AFO he made meant that a woman could walk down the aisle at her own wedding. Now, and he didn't work directly with her, but when he learned that was the impact of what he did, it said it absolutely put the hairs on the back of his neck stand up, and it absolutely made his day. So there is something around reinforcing the impact of the work that we do, and its potential to enhance, feeling valued and enjoying work and feeling satisfied in what you do. So I think there is something, I'll look in the report and see whether we've pulled enough of that out, but I think that's a good call. Matthew, can I bring you in?
Hi there. Sorry, yeah, my Teams is being a bit funny this evening, so sorry I couldn't see if my hand was raised or not. It's a bit of an odd question, and sorry if it raises more questions than it asks, if that makes sense. But so I'm from Dorset County Hospital down in the south of England. We're quite rural, kind of where we sit, and we're an NHS in-house trust. And I was really interested by the kind of point earlier raised about how we have kind of almost 900 support workers and technicians, but to meet standards, we almost need to double or even triple that. And it's interesting because we were looking at a bit of kind of a feasibility of getting someone in-house to do some technical work for us, as we have to send all of our stuff out at the moment to external companies just because we don't have any in-house technical help really. And I think one of the things we've been struggling with a little bit is that kind of starting something up. So from scratch, we have a very small workshop with pretty much a grinder and half a glue table. And so we were kind of looking at the feasibility of how much it would cost to kind of get our workshop up to scratch, to bring technical staff in-house instead of outsourcing everything. And I think obviously it's a little bit awkward for us to go to companies and sort of ask, how did you set everything up? Because then we're saying, how did you do it so we don't have to pay you to do it anymore, realistically. So I guess my only question was that something that kind of flagged up at all during the kind of report or the kind of conversations had about if we're looking to kind of double or triple capacity, how smaller, more rural trusts like ours might start up a kind of workshop or technical side of things where nothing exists already to work on?
Thank you, Matthew. And I'll bring in anyone else who wants to contribute as well, because I think that is an excellent question. There is another project, there's a variety of work streams going on, and there's one around commissioning as well, and looking at how we commission services and what can be provided. I also know outside of this scope of work that Bev Harden is leading some work on looking at the needs of remote and rural workforces and the development of them. So there might be something in her work that will be coming out shortly that may be of value to add weight to your discussions. And again, I guess the support worker framework would also help justify why you might want to offer some sort of in-house provision. But it wasn't a massive theme that came up through this piece of work, but partly because we weren't necessarily asking about it, given the other project, which is focusing on commissioning. Is there anything anyone wants to add about that?
Sorry, I'm monopolising here again, Steph, but I think to answer Matthew's question, I think you would probably need to put together a case to say bringing a member of staff in and obviously maybe purchasing some more machinery would obviously cost, but I think your cost benefit would then be at the end of the day, you wouldn't be having to send out as much work. So it's obviously, it need to be an investment to obviously get the member of staff and to get the equipment that you would need up and running. But I think within a short space of time, the savings that you would make on what you were having to pay to get your devices manufactured off-site would then have an impact on that, and then gradually, you're going to have to invest some money at the beginning to get the service going. But I think in the long run, you would get the benefit of bringing some stuff back in-house. Even being able to do some, I would say, major alterations as well. I'm sure you're obviously doing some minor alterations within your workshop, but being able to do some major work as well would then mean that, for example, and also the cost, the hidden cost is a patient maybe not having to come back for another appointment. If you could do the adaptions on site, or if you could do the manufacture on site, you mean that patient could maybe go home with that finished device rather than you sending the device back to be altered at the central fab and then coming back, and patients then having to come back in again for another appointment. I mean, that's a cost that we probably don't think about, but that would be a direct cost to the service that you would be saving.
Yeah, definitely. And thank you, as you say, for raising that. You're exactly right. We found that, we have like minimum 8-day turnarounds for things like resoling footwear and things like that, that realistically we shouldn't have to send it over multiple counties. And so, as you say, I guess the question was more if anyone else has run into it, if anyone else kind of even outside the meeting on recording has any suggestions of, how they've set up new services from scratch and things like that. I'd be very grateful if anyone wants to give me a shout.
Yeah, I'm sure I could take your shoes in the morning in the workshop there and have them resold in the afternoon for the patient to pick them back up again. So there you go.
Yeah, exactly. It sounds so, as you say, it sounds like every commissioner would kind of jump at it on paper, but yeah.
Yeah, it's making it happen in practice, isn't it? And putting forward that cost benefit analysis to do that piece of work. And then I'm just noticing Anne Marie's comment about sort of technicians working worldwide to meet with clients, and that hasn't been something that's come through as a theme, but it's certainly something we can allude to in report about, that it's not just about technicians working in hospitals, but it's much broader and how we can develop those roles in different sectors as well. So thank you for adding that one. Any other comments before we start to close? If there is, please do contact us, because we're continuing to do this work. The report, like I said, that it is in draft. It's going to be finished in the next few weeks, and then that will be available on the website. And then hopefully we're developing all of these resources that we can then start using to conceptualize how we can expand this part of the workforce. If there's no other questions, I'll pass you back to Krista.
Thank you so much, Steph, for that wonderful session, and for everyone who contributed to the conversation and to the chat. Thank you. It's always nice and refreshing to know that people are listening and engaging with the conversations as well. So we've come to the very end. Thank you, everybody. Have a lovely evening.